Welcome back to Nucleopatra, making a Dead or Alive album with me, Barry Stone. Thanks for joining us for episode 3, everyone. If you didn't know by now, we're celebrating Nucleopatra, the 6th studio album by Dead or Alive, which I helped to make back in 1994. How is everyone doing? Thanks so much for all your comments and messages about the podcast and for all the reposting and sharing you're doing. It really helps get the podcast noticed, so keep it up, spread the good word wherever you can. This week, I got to open my Paul Cox book. How amazing is it? I'm sure a lot of you have seen it by now. I especially loved reading all the bits Lynn added, particularly the story about the white Yohji Yamamoto suit, and how when Pete was a child, a gypsy knocked on the door and told his mum that she saw this child being very successful in white, and how his mum took that as meaning he was going to be a doctor. Dr. Burns will see you now. I also loved seeing the shots from the shoot Paul did for the Sunday supplement, which I remember from back in the day, but seeing the new shot with Di Vidos in the picture was really nice and showed just how close they all were. My interview with Di is coming up in a few episodes' time, and you'll hear just how pivotal her role was in the band's success. But for this episode, I'm going to be sharing my memories of recording the next batch of tracks we worked on at PWL. But before we get to that, we have another very special guest, and one who sang on many Dead or Alive records, Tracy Ackerman. From the Nude album up to Nucleopatra, Tracy was a backing vocalist that Pete and Steve would always turn to. Her golden voice is all over those records, and the boys loved her so much, they also took her on tour with them to Japan. Tracy was one of the biggest session singers around in the late 80s and throughout the 90s, constantly in studios providing backing vocals for so many huge artists. She's been a featured vocalist on many hit records. She's toured with the likes of Eric Clapton and Boyzone. She's had phenomenal success as a songwriter and written songs for Cher, Celine Dion, Tina Turner, Kylie Minogue. She's written not 1, not 2, but 5 number 1 songs, including a US number 1 for Taylor Hicks. Tracy has nothing but great memories of working with Pete and Steve, and she was really happy to share them. So here's how our chat went. Can you believe this album is 30 years old?
No, where's time gone? It's mental.
Your voice is all over this album, and I know how much the boys thought of you. They both adored you, and Steve would sing your praises on a daily basis. I remember him saying you were like a machine, and your voice was so precise that you could actually double track Pete's vocal and no one would be able to tell it wasn't him.
So that's so kind of him to say, but it was just fun, wasn't it? I mean, crikey.
Do you know, I have a vague recollection of him saying he once did an experiment where he got the waveforms of Pete's voice and your voice after you tracked him, and they completely lined up.
Did you really? I didn't even know that. That's brand new information. That's brilliant.
Anyway, thank you so much for doing this. I really wanted to get you on here as I know you have such a history with the band pre-Nucleopatra, and I'd love you to share some of your memories of working with Pete and Steve. Can we start with how you first came to work with Dead or Alive?
I always get random calls from people. Can you do this? Can you do that? It would have just been another session, and I just hit it off with them because as I've got to know them through the years, I realised they don't get on with not everybody, do they? Well, they didn't, you know?
Right.
They definitely didn't get on with everybody, and I just got on so well with them. But what I do remember very clearly was I'd literally just finished touring with Eric Clapton in Japan, and I didn't particularly want to go back to Japan because I was jet lagged a lot the whole time I was over there, and I just didn't enjoy it really, just because I was so bloody tired. And I do remember Pete saying, right, please come with us. And I said, I really don't want to do a tour in Japan. I would if it was somewhere else, but I don't really want to do Japan. And he relentlessly kept on. He really kept on and on and on and on, ringing me. So eventually I agreed to tour with them. Turned up at a rehearsal studio in, I'm going to say it was Kensington somewhere. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. I was only a young bird. And I remember this so clearly. There was he'd employed a bass player, which was incredibly handsome. And I was single at the time, so of course as soon as I saw this bass player, I thought, oh my God, I've never seen anyone so handsome in all my life. And I don't this is the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me. So I was chatting to the bass player. Pete comes up behind me, lifts my top up, and I didn't have a bra on in front of the bass player. And I'm trying to impress this guy, and he just lifts my top up, and I wanted to kill him. And I said,
my God.
I can't believe you've done this. I almost cried. I mean, I was just so, but I was just a young girl, and I said to him, right, I'm not coming to Japan now. And I made him swear on his life that he would never embarrass me ever again or do anything horrible to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't go to Japan. It's so funny.
More importantly, did you get with a bass player?
No. Do you know what? I actually got to know him and I didn't like it.
Okay, right. We won't say his name.
No, I can't remember his name, if I'm honest. I really can't. But he was very handsome. I will say that. Very handsome.
and so back to making the album before you went to Japan. Do you remember like how many songs you sang on? Was it one session? Was it a couple of sessions?
I think I'd done quite a few songs for them by then.
Yeah. And because I know on that album, Laura Pallas and Jackie Raw were also backing singers. So
were they? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I take it then they were separate sessions, and you just did you. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So this was famously the album where two of the members left the band. Were you aware of any drama at that time?
No, but funny enough, I did work with those two guys, and I did Thinking About Your Love with Kenny Thomas. Yeah, and we also did Danny Minogue, and we did a few other sort of artists or whatever, and they were living in Beaconsfield at the time. That's why I did the sessions with those two, and I got on really well with those two as well. So I must have met those two through the band, and then they obviously split up, and then I just carried on with both sides, I suppose.
Gotcha.
Must have done. Yeah.
So I was thinking it might be interesting for you to describe for the listeners how you would generally go about constructing your backing vocals on a Dead or Alive record.
Usually I like to follow the lead vocal. So my thing was always to blend in as much as possible with the lead vocal, unless I was told not to. Somebody would say, no, we don't want you to sound like me, sound like everybody else, sound like who you want to sound like. And I'd always start with the main melody, and then I'd usually put a few up or down harmonies. I'd track it maybe 4 times each harmony, and then go up or down. I'd probably put a high octave or a low octave on, because in those days I smoked cigarettes, so my voice was incredibly deep. I could do such low octaves, it was crazy. I probably couldn't get that low anymore because I quit about 18 years ago. But yeah, so we just used to layer them like that, and then listen to whatever the record was, listen to it all the way through. And usually Pete would have ideas what he wanted me to do, but most of the time they'd say, well, what do you think?
Yeah, experiment.
Yeah, what do you think? And I used to love working that way. I like working both ways, actually, because I do like direction as well. So
yeah, but it's good when you experiment, you can come up with some magic, can't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. And also then at the end they'd always say to me, right, do ad-libs. We're going to do 10 tracks of ad-libs, and then they pick ones they wanted, and they might use them, might sample them, they might play about with them, and that was fine. That was a bit of fun too. So
well, the band obviously loved you because in October 1990, like you said, they took you with them to Japan. And so when you'd go, how long would you be there for one time? A month or?
Probably something like that, yeah. Maybe 3 weeks, something like that. Just long enough to get over the jet lag and then have to come home again, just as you got used to it normally.
At this time, the band were massive in Japan. I mean,
oh, yes.
You were with them when they were at the absolute pinnacle of the success. Yes. And I know you'd been there with Eric Clapton before. What was it like to experience the Dead or Alive level of fan hysteria up close?
Totally different. Their fans were hysterical, as you say. It was Eric Clapton's fans seemed to be a bit calmer and a bit older. And I do remember in the audience, they'd all sit down with Eric Clapton. Mind you, they had to in Japan anyway, because they wouldn't get up. They wouldn't get up and dance and enjoy themselves. They did seem to be all very sat in their seats. But it was after the shows I noticed. So with Dead or Alive, they'd be screaming and running after the coach, throwing gifts at everybody, including me. I mean, I used to get fan mail and gifts and stuff, and they were great fans, Whereas Eric Clapton, it was a bit more mature age
Yes.
group, I think. So they didn't run after the coach and scream and try and get autographs. So that was exciting,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
exciting.
Is there any funny moments that you remember from touring with the boys?
Well, I do, and I've got some funny stories. One of my funniest ones was when we were in Japan and Pete fancied one of the dancers, and he said to me, I really fancy this guy. He said, but I don't know if he's gay. He said, so would you chat him up for me and see whether you think he's gay or not, and just get an idea. He said, I'll put money behind the bar, buy him some drinks, just be nice to him, and just see if you can get any information out of him without being too obvious. So, of course, I'm sat there, bought the guy drinks in this hotel. We're in a hotel we're staying. And what I didn't know was the guy wasn't gay. So had no clue whether he was straight or gay. So he wasn't gay. He fancied me, but I didn't know that because I was a bit wet behind the ears. I didn't pick up on any signals of anyone ever fancying me. It was really weird. Anyway, I said to him, do you like, do you like sort of men, feminine, women? Do you like what sort of, And he looked me up and down as if I was asking him on my behalf. And he said, well, yeah, feminine, absolutely feminine. I said, okay, what about someone who's actually a man who looks like a woman? And he looked me up and down again, and I thought he was sort of eyeing me up a bit, and he said, well, yes. I mean, if you're saying what I think you're saying, yes. And then I realised he thought I was a man, and I was just dressed as a woman or something, because we didn't know each other. This is the first time we'd literally been on tour for 3 days, and I'm thinking, oh my God, he thinks I'm a man and I'm dressed like a woman. And I had to be really clear. I went, no, not me. And he's like, oh, shit, okay. Oh, okay. So I don't know what you mean then. I was like, oh, my God, this is so embarrassing. And in the background, Pete's looking at me with his thumbs up or down, you know what I mean? He's at the back of the bar, and I'm going, I don't bloody know.
It's up for me, it's down for you.
Absolutely. That was funny. Yeah, that was a really funny one. Another funny story is when I turned up in a studio in Notting Hill, and I was a bit early. There was a few dodgy goings on down there, so I purposely didn't go in early. I didn't know what was going on down there. Anyway, when I got in there, they were smoking these giant spliffs. And they kept saying, do you want some? I said, no, I don't. I didn't actually like it in those days, to be honest. I didn't do drugs, and I just didn't do anything dodgy like that, apart from occasional little spliff when I was younger and didn't like it. So I said, no, I don't want it. Because you can imagine the whole control room was full of smoke. So I was breathing it whether I wanted it or not. So I did the session, and it was a really fun session, brilliant session. And when I went to pick my car up, it started to hit me. I must have had the effects of it. And the man in the car park, I asked him how much I owed him about 6 times, and he ended up shouting at me when he said it's £23, because I was obviously completely gone out of my head, and I drove home like it.
Oh my God.
I know, but because I didn't do anything myself, I had no idea. I thought, what's going on with my memory? I don't know where I am. What's going on? And from then on, I said, guys, you mustn't do that in the studio with me in the future, because I've got to sing and I've got to drive home. It's terrible.
Do you remember anything that went wrong in a show that ended up being really
Yes.
funny? Like, was there mishaps or dramas that you remember?
Yes, I do remember. We went on stage in Japan, and Pete had a backless outfit on with his bottom showing. And I think the front looked like a cow, like a moo cow type of outfit, so with all the lovely patches on. It was a lovely outfit.
I think it was a Vivienne Westwood outfit.
It probably was, and it was great, actually. And I just thought it was brilliant. But you know how subdued the Japanese are. They don't like all that sort of show stuff. So Pete said, right, we're doing the TV show for this company, and I'm going to wear that outfit. So he'd worn it, and they'd all frowned at it, and it was all big news. It was like, no, you can't go on like this. But it was a TV show, and he wanted to wear that particular outfit. It was definitely a backless outfit anyway, with his little bottom showing. And they said, no. But he turned up for the actual filming with this outfit on. And as we were walking up the corridor, I remember seeing all these Sony bags, big gifting bags with our names on. So it was Tracy Ackerman and Steve Coy and all our names and all the backing musicians and everything, all our names on. And I thought, oh my God, that's gift bags. Look, it's all free. Sony Walkmans and drum machines and all exciting electronic machines. Oh my God, that is so exciting. They're obviously going to give us those bags when we finished the TV performance. Anyway, Pete turns up walks up and there's chaos going on in the TV studio. And they're like, no, you can't go on. You can't. No, not in that outfit. And, Pete was very stubborn and he wouldn't change his outfit. So they said, right, no, cancel the TV show, and kicked us out the TV station. And we're literally walking past all like exciting bags and we weren't allowed to have them. And I was gutted. I was like, oh my God, look at all the free gifts. We're just having to go home and not have all these lovely things. It was hilarious.
Thanks a lot, Pete.
Yeah, absolutely. But he used to always wear these wacky see-through outfits, and half the time they were frightened to say anything, to be honest.
Yes.
Japanese people are really subdued and conservative.
Yeah, they knew what they were going to get.
It was funny to watch, because as a backing singer, it has nothing to do with me. I just do as I'm told.
You've basically got no pressure. You can just do your thing and you watch all the drama unfold.
I literally would watch the show myself, even on the stage. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
And he'd change the set sometimes, or sometimes he would call me down front and say, Tracy Akerman, come and do some ad-libs. And I think, oh, Pete, I'm not prepared. Thanks for that. Luckily, I was okay at stuff like that. And I'd go down and show off a bit and be a bit silly.
Excellent.
And, it would please him because he loved everything to be spontaneous, and he wanted to be pleased and entertained at all times, as you know.
Yes. But also on tour, I bet there was quite the entourage because you have the band. Lynn was obviously there, of course, the manager at the time, the dancers. You must have had some laughs. Who did you hang out with and who were you closest to on the tours?
So I think Peter Oxenberg was brilliant. We used to get on like a house on fire.
Yeah.
Tim Widener, he was the sound engineer, out front sound engineer. He was brilliant. Who else did I used to hang out with? Well, I hang out with everyone, to be honest. We all got on so well. And I always remember, going along in the coaches and taking pictures of each other. I've got quite a few photographs of that time.
I was going to say, you mentioned about the fans chasing the coach and that. Was there any moments of kind of like crazy fan encounters that you remember?
Not in Japan for sure, because they were very respectful. So they would get hysterical and cry. But so English fans, I always remember, because I've toured with lots of different bands, and English fans will pull your clothing or, try and get a bit of your hair or whatever they do, these dafty things. But they didn't do that in Japan. They were very respectful. So they just stand and cry and hold they chase all the coaches or whatever, and they'd hold their little pads out for and you couldn't help.
If the coach stopped, they wouldn't know what to do.
Exactly. They were so cute. I mean, cute is the right word for the Japanese fans. They were cute.
It was a more innocent time. I bet it's probably not like that now.
Yeah, well, no, it probably isn't like that now. I mean, it was, we are going back a few years, aren't we? Yeah. Probably all changed now. They're probably allowed to go mental now and just go mad. And it was in those days, it was very different cultures. Took a lot of getting used to as a young girl. Walking around Japan on my own, mind it was safe, which was great.
I was going to say the tours, because you did go over quite a few times with them, and it kind of spread across the two albums, Nude and then Fan the Flame, which was released in November 1990. Do you have any memories of recording that album? I think it was at SARM.
All my memories are very mixed up because you can imagine.
So long ago.
I worked in hundreds of recording studios, and so it's hard to remember each different session. And I'd sometimes be doing 5 sessions a day in those days. It was crazy. So to try and remember one
I get it.
Session. I just used to remember the essence of them. They were one of my favourite people to work with, and because it's the essence of them I remember, and the fun that we'd have, and the screaming laughter that we'd have, which was brilliant. Because in a studio sometimes it can be quite serious, can't it?
Yeah, and I bet with a lot of sessions you can't wait to get out, but with these ones, it sounds like you weren't watching the clock. You were happy to stay.
Absolutely, yeah.
But part of your job as a backing vocalist is to support and complement the lead vocalist, and obviously your voice and Pete's worked very well together.
Yeah.
What do you think it was about his voice that made it so special?
It was very different, his voice, wasn't it? It was deep. He had massive vibrato on his voice. And it was very powerful. He had a very, very forceful, powerful voice. And also because he was such a, I'm going to say, an elegant man, because he looked feminine. So for somebody that looked like that to have such a powerful voice was quite unusual. I think it was quite special.
Yeah, definitely. When I was recording Nucleopatra, I really had to be ready to not have the levels too high because he was going to belt it. There was no kind of
Yes.
like warming up. It was at 100 from like the get-go. So
Yeah.
you really wanted, and he didn't want to do very many times either. Like you said, he's very spontaneous, so
Yes.
he didn't want to do it over and over again. So you really had to
Exactly.
capture it early on.
He did.
A very diverse voice. I mean, he could do really warm, but then I'm
Yes.
thinking of like on Nude, I Cannot Carry On, where you have the beautiful warm soft low verses, but then he belts it out so powerfully in the chorus.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Would you say there was anything about working with Dead or Alive that differed from any of the other many artists you've worked with?
Everything was different. I loved working with them. I absolutely loved them. They were brilliant, fun, spontaneous. They were just so different. Let's be honest. They were very different, and the personalities shone. You know, which I love. That I love people with great personalities. And not everybody has that. When you work with people, sometimes you have to sort of squeeze it out of certain artists, I suppose. But they just had it in buckets full of charisma. And I've got the most incredible memories of those guys and touring with them and being with them in the studio. I loved it. I just loved every minute of it, to be honest.
I loved chatting with Tracy and hearing all about the genuine friendship she had with the band. More from our chat later in this episode, but I want to talk now about a few more of the tracks we recorded for the album. After we mixed the first 3 tracks with Les, we took a break of about 2 weeks and got back to work on the album in the second week of March 1994. I notice in my diary entries I'm now referring to the band as International Crisis. The first track we work on when we come back together is a song called Sleep With You.
I want to sleep with you. One night together. I want to be your man. Take you to heaven.
When I first heard this one, it was called I Want to Be With You, and it was one the boys had already demoed. Again, sounded very nice. It needed to be rolled around in the dirt to make it more gritty. We want gritty, not pretty. Basically, this was my ethos for the whole album. I was all for making Dead or Alive sound more dance and more punk. We added vocal samples we found in random libraries. Pete and Steve loved a band called Thieves, and they had a beautiful single called Unworthy, which we listened to a lot, just because we liked it. And loved David McCormick's voice. Anyway, this record had some great sampling of movie vocals, so Steve brought in some recordings he had, and we ended up using the line, "Wanna see whether you can sleep with your enemies?" I'm not sure what film it's from, but I kind of remember it might be Richard Burton. I'm sure someone will tell me. One record I was obsessed with around this time was Could This Be Love by an artist called Kerry Shaw. Kerry was basically doing exactly what I wanted to be doing, i.e. being an amazing pop star making 80s inspired Eurodance pop music with a high energy feel. Unfortunately, the general public didn't seem to want that anymore, so her record wasn't a hit, but I played it to death and it was a big inspiration for my Belvedere Kane material. But Steve loved it too, and its influence definitely crept into the Nucleopatra sessions. Here's a blast of it. Pete sounded so tough on this one, which I loved. And the lovely Tracy is on this one too, interplaying with Pete perfectly on the Yes I Do line. This is one of those situations Tracy spoke about where we would have had her ad-lib around Pete's vocal and she came up with that line, which we ended up sampling and using it all over the track. Such a great hook and very 90s house. This high vocal you hear is the great T Green, who we used on a few tracks on the album. T was a bit like a male version of Tracy and had such a rich, warm sounding voice. And here's that great interplay Tracy does with Pete on the Yes I Do lines. I love it. Pete and Steve were all for calling on other musicians to collaborate with, and on this album alone we had so many talented people play and sing. All these performances only served to elevate the records. I think this is what gives Dead or Alive records both their variety and quality. If you go back to even the first album, Sophisticated Boom Boom, that album's producer, Zois Beheld, was using the kick horns, a group of musicians who provided all that really distinctive brass which is featured throughout that album. It gives it such personality. You also have Jackie, May and Lorenzo on backing vocals on that one. Again, fantastic musicians at the top of their game and enriching what's already there. For each album, the band would always call on various world-class musicians to contribute, and it was always about improving and making the best record possible. In the same week we worked on Sleep With You, we also started Spend the Night Together. I have a feeling this one was also written around the Fan the Flame era, and I seem to remember when Steve first played it to me, it was called We're Both in This Together. But Pete got tweaking on those lyrics, and I think the new chorus lyric was definitely an improvement. So to make this song work with the rest of the album, I've worked on tougher sections that come before and after the song. There's a few versions of it knocking around. The one that's on my original CD released in 95 is the one I'm talking about here, where we've basically got a 12-inch structure with a club intro and outro, and sections that are very in keeping with the rest of the album, but have very little to do with the actual song. And then we have the song plonked in the middle. Pete sounds great on it, and I do love the trippy out of my mind lock when the track breaks down to just that big bass line. It gives the whole thing a real club vibe. The whole thing clocks in at about 9 minutes long, so I know Steve must have been really enjoying this one. It's another one we have Tracy Ackerman on, and here in the chorus, Tracy does such a great interplay, coming in after Pete's lead with that smooth, spend the night, need you more, thing for you. It's such a thing of beauty, and I want to hear it right now. The final track I'm going to talk about this episode is another oldie but goodie and one of my faves, International Thing. So in another place and time, this song had a different chorus and it was called You Were Meant For Me. That version of the song actually ended up on what would become the band's 8th studio album, Fan the Flame Part 2, which was released in 2021. But back in 94, after Steve brought this one in for me to work on, I programmed up a new backing track, and like some of the other tracks on the album, he'd take a cassette of what we'd done home to Pete, and then not long after that, Pete would come in with a brand new chorus he was very excited about and keen to record. T Green is back again on this one and all over the chorus. I didn't mention before, but T did a lot of vocal work for Phil Harding and Ian Curnow on the E17 records, and you'll hear him all over Stay Another Day. So there's a little fun fact for you. This is another one that's in a 12-inch structure on the original album. Steve loved the 12-inch format, and if I'm not mistaken, we would have made up 12 inches for every track on the album, and then Steve decided, when he came to compile the album, which versions were used. Love some of the lyrics on this. It takes two to make the night alright, only you can make me feel so nice. It takes years to get your pants that tight, only stars shine so bright. Classic Pete. A lot of the lyrics from the original song remained, but Pete added a new section. You made front page news across the world when you overdosed in Rome. This is most definitely a reference to Kurt Cobain, the singer of the band Nirvana, who was hospitalized in Rome after an accidental overdose in March 94. Cobain was married to Courtney Love, whose band Hole were quite big at the time we recorded the album, and who Pete had known back in Liverpool when she used to abuse him on his way to and from work. I think he was slightly fascinated by her. By 1994 she was everywhere, and he actually dedicated the Rebel Rebel single to her, and also one of the mixes had been called the Whole Mix. I remembered a few years later that Pete and Lynn were at a VH1 award ceremony in New York, and Pete had come back so excited as they'd bumped into her at the event. I reminded Lynn about this during our chat.
It was when she was Miss Hollywood.
Yes.
And she came past and said hello and everything. And it was all very friendly.
And you all reconnected.
Yes.
You were all very excited, I remember that.
Yeah, that was great, because we didn't know what to expect, given our history in Liverpool. I mean, she was going up to get an award. She just leaned over, gave him a kiss, and then she went, oh, Lynn. But she was all very well behaved.
Yeah, she'd had the makeover.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll talk about more tracks from the album in the next episode. But back now to our chat with the lovely Tracy Ackerman, who has more stories about her time on the road with Dead or Alive and some of the shenanigans the band got up to.
I mean, they used to have kicking competitions in hotel lobbies, and most of them wore, even the band started copying them. They start wearing the alligator skin boots, those pointy boots, sort of like cowboy boots almost. And they'd have they'd be really pointy shoes, and they'd kick each other in fun, not angry. And they'd say the F word in the Liverpudlian accent, and twat, and that was one of their favourite sayings. And I used to love that. I mean, I started using it myself because I'd come off tour with them and I'd say to my sisters, you effing twat, and I'd say it in their accent. And my sisters started picking up on it, and it became a catchphrase in our family because of them. I mean, it was hilarious.
It spread across the UK.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
You twat. I love that. In the last bit of our chat, Tracy looks back on what a special relationship Pete and Steve had. But I started by asking her about her day on the set of the video for Your Sweetness Is Your Weakness.
I do remember that day. That is one video I do remember being. That was crazy day. I loved that. That was I also remember there was a lot of chaos going on, and as you say, Pete only like one takes and stuff like that, so everything had to be done, purposefully and just spot on. And I always remember he had this snake in for the shoot.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It was like they had a big decision. Was it going to be a horse or a snake? Fuck it, let's have both.
It was crazy. I mean, who does that? I mean, and he said to me, right, we're going to sit in a line on a sofa, and the snake has to, and he put me next to the handsome man as well, which was...
I spotted that, by the way.
Oh, did you? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So he said the snake's going to come across us, and I think we only did about 2 takes of this scene, to be honest. But I remember as the snake came up to me and it stopped and looked at me. And I don't remember if that's on the video or not, because I haven't watched the video for a long time. But I remember that particular take, and the snake stopped, and I thought, in my head, I got to look calm because I know they're still filming, and I'm thinking I've got to look as if this is really natural.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, oh,
As you take a swig of your glass of champagne with a snake looking at you.
I was like, just dying on the inside, but really calm on the outside. It was crazy that day, and I think I think he had arguments with people that day as well. I do remember a lot of chaos.
Yeah, there was a lot of it looked like there's about 150 extras. I mean, it did look chaotic, and I think
It
the video
was.
was directed by Steve, and he did an amazing job because it looked
Yeah,
stunning.
it
But
did.
I imagine it was a lot of pressure. He did take a lot on his shoulders because probably by this time he was also managing the band. So
Yeah, that was a lot for him. And he used
yeah,
to manage Pete so well. I mean, he had the kind of relationship with Pete. He could talk him down. Do you know what I mean? He could calm him down, and he just had a special relationship with him. He was, he adored him.
yeah,
And do you know,
he
I
did.
remember Steve called me probably about a year before he died. It could have even been sooner than that, to be honest. I didn't know he was ill at all. So he called me, and I was so ecstatic to hear from him. He lived in Genoa. And said, "Oh, come and see me. I live with my new wife, Marina, and please come and stay with us." And I said, "Oh, I do work in Genoa sometimes for this other guy, so I will come and see you." And all he talked about the whole conversation was Pete and how he missed him. And I felt so much for him. I thought, oh, bless him. He loved him so
He
much, and
did,
he
yeah.
missed him so much. And I thought, oh, this is so sad.
Yeah.
He's really pining for him.
He was his biggest champion, and I think
He was.
he gave Pete such a platform to be
He
Pete.
did.
And I
Yes.
think as much as there was pros and cons to managing the band, I mean, the pros were nobody was a bigger champion than Steve, but then the cons were
Yes.
it's just a lot of pressure for, one person
It really
to
was.
do it all.
And Steve would be there. He would literally never let him down.
Yeah, he was a rock. He really
He was
was.
a rock. He was
Mm.
brilliant with him. It was unparalleled relationship, those two. They just stuck together, They're just all so loyal to each other. And Lynn as well. They were so loyal to each other.
They were a team.
They really were.
Love Tracy Ackerman. I want to share with you a little behind the scenes info. When I first thought about doing this podcast, I thought about all the people I could ask, and Tracy was obviously up there. But she was nowhere to be found online. Her number wasn't in my phone. She's not on Facebook or Instagram. I don't know who manages her. So what did I do? I dug out my trusted Filofax from 1994, and there she was. Her number was in my contacts from all those years ago. I dropped her a text to see if she'd be up for chatting, and within 15 minutes we'd arranged the chat for the very next day. You can tell how much she thought of the boys, and I can tell you the feeling was mutual. After our chat, she sent me some fantastic photos she had from her time touring with the band in Japan. And when I met Lynn, I shared the photos with her. She'd never seen them before, and her face lit up. From everything I've heard, those Japanese tours were such a golden time for everybody involved. But a big thank you to Tracy for sharing her memories with us. You can hear more from my interview with Tracy in Nucleopatra's tomb by signing up over at barrystonemusic.co.uk. In the next episode, I am so excited to be joined by another Dead or Alive legend, none other than Mr. Dean Bright. Dean's journey with the band goes way back to when he made that now iconic purple dressing gown. He went on to appear in the Turnaround and Count to 10 video, and in the 90s, Dean was part of the Nucleopatra band, joining Pete, Steve and Jay, touring and promoting the album all around the world. I had such a fantastic chat with Dean, can't wait for you to hear it. My thanks to Demon Music Group for allowing me to include all the music you've heard in this episode. If you haven't already got your copy of Nucleopatra, head over to demonmusicgroup.co.uk and get your copy now. And just to let you know, they still have 25th anniversary blue vinyl copies available. Just saying. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please leave a glowing review as it helps others find us. You can find me at Barry Stone Music on Facebook, Instagram and TikTok. Do join me next time for more Nucleopatra adventures. Until then, bye for now.